The Bank of Namibia, let's move on, is worried that declining diamond export earnings this year will dampen the central bank's growth forecast of 4%, even as the Southern Africa's economy looks to diversify away from its dependence on diamond exports into agriculture and energy. Now let's get some excerpts for you from Monday's report presentations by the central bank chief.
Domestic economic activity exhibited sustained expansion in 2024. However, the rate of growth moderated compared to the preceding year. Specifically, growth decelerated from 4.4% in 2023 to 3.7% in 2024, mainly due to the primary industries, which contracted by 1.8%, a significant reduction from the growth of 10% observed in 2023. The contraction was mainly observed in diamond mining, crop farming, fish, and fish processing subsectors. Nevertheless, growth during 2024 was sustained by the improvements in the secondary and tertiary industries, which registered growth rates of 3% and 4.9% in 2024 respectively, from the 2.4% and 3% recorded in 2023. Looking ahead, the Namibian economy is projected to gradually expand over the medium term. Real gross domestic product is forecast to increase by 4% in 2025 and 4.4% in 2026, relative to 3.7% recorded in 2024. This anticipated recovery is expected to be largely supported by improvements in the primary industries, particularly strong growth in crop farming and the non-diamond mining sector. The domestic economy remains vulnerable to significant downside risk, most notably the potential for diminished diamond earnings due to the depressed price pressures and the increasing prevalence of lab-grown alternatives. Furthermore, the prospect of trade disruptions arising from geopolitical tensions alongside potential inflationary pressures present a considerable challenge. Adding to these concerns, fiscal pressures resulting from declining SACU customs revenue and diamond revenues could lead to constrained fiscal space in our country. Finally, the increased frequency of rainfall introduces the risk of infrastructure damage and flooding, further amplifying the vulnerability of the domestic economy. Let us now look at how we discharge monetary policy in a very uncertain environment. Our commitment to price stability has yielded significant results, including a notable shift in the domestic inflation narrative and adjustments to the repo rate. The primary statutory mandate of the Bank of Namibia is the resolute pursuit and maintenance of price stability. Price stability is essential for safeguarding the purchasing power of the Namibia dollar and preserving the living standards of the citizens. It's good for our competitiveness, it's good for economic growth, it's good for the welfare of the society. Furthermore, a stable price environment is conducive to robust investment. The bank's commitment to price stability is operationalized through a fixed exchange rate regime in which the Namibia dollar is pegged to the South African rand on a 1-to-1 basis through the Common Monetary Area arrangement. Recent macroeconomic developments indicate a notable shift in the domestic inflation narrative. Following a period of elevated and persistent inflation, reaching the peak of 7.3% in August 2022, headline inflation has significantly decelerated, with the lowest inflation print of 3% in October and November 2024. Further, when compared to the 2023 annual average inflation of 5.9%, the outturn for inflation indicates a moderation to an average of 4.2% for 2024. The decline in inflation largely reflected a deceleration in inflation food for food and non-alcoholic beverages in 2024 relative to 2023. Additionally, the deceleration is due to the confluence of factors, including the easing of crude oil prices and the strengthening of the Namibia dollar in 2024, which has contributed to broad-based disinflation in food and fuel prices. Similarly, core inflation, the Bank of Namibia's principal metric for assessing underlying domestically induced inflationary pressures, registered a lower outturn of 4% in 2024 compared to 4.4% in the preceding year. The moderation in core inflation reflects a significant easing in goods inflation, largely underpinned by the appreciation of the Namibia dollar, which has been supported inter alia by the increase in the real policy interest rate. The recent subdued headline inflation outcomes, if sustained, are expected to foster further moderation in inflation expectations. Consequently, headline inflation is projected to average 4% in 2025 before a marginal increase to 4.4% in 2026. These forecasts primarily reflect significant fuel deflation and notably lower food inflation. Given that these developments are predominantly driven by supply-side factors, including exchange rate dynamics, the bank's policy focus will remain vigilant to mitigate potential second-round effects. This approach will be applied symmetrically to both upside and downside inflation shocks to ensure the continued anchoring of inflation expectations and the maintenance of price stability. As you are all aware, in response to accelerating in inflation in 2022, the bank gradually began tightening monetary policy by raising the repo rate by a cumulative 400 basis points between July 2022 and July 2024.